Have you ever thought about diversity? Our next speaker has, and it can be a quite heavy subject. So let's welcome Mariana Alessi.
Diversity means plurality, variety, difference. Without diversity, the world would be a pretty boring place. Now, when we think about diversity, what usually comes to our minds is cultural diversity, right? Different traditions, different peoples, different customs, like the Thai girl in the picture. Or even diverse religions, right? Diverse beliefs, like Christians, Protestants, Buddhism, Muslims. Now, there's some other aspects of diversity I want to touch. Another one that we usually see when we talk about diversity is gender identity diversity or sexual orientation diversity. But I think that diversity can be found in other things, such as professions. Why not diverse professions, different professions? Or even sportive diversity, right? Different sports. If there weren't different sports in the world, there would be no Olympics. Or if there weren't different soccer teams, there would be no cups. Diversity is everywhere. And diversity can be noticed also in human beings in some different aspects, in the way they think, in the way they look, or maybe it may reflect where they were born, or where they come from, or by whom they were raised. I strongly believe that in order for human beings to individually contribute to the dynamic world we live in, we need to have two main factors incorporated into our lives. I would say, I want you to remember them because I'll touch them throughout this talk here for you today. Openness and respect. Openness to receive and embrace what others have to offer, and respect for the choices one makes. Now, let's meet the Dani tribe. The Dani tribe is from the West Papua, Indonesia. They're located about 1,600 meters or 1 mile above sea level, and they're only reachable by plane. Now, due to the remoteness of their location, they're still living a very primitive life, very traditional ways. It is estimated that 250,000 Dani people live in the region. Now, peoples of certain cultures believe that the physical representation of emotional pain after losing a loved one is completely necessary to the grieving process of death, to the suffering process of death. So, the women in the Dani tribe mutilate themselves upon losing a loved one. They cut the top half of their fingers off when they attend a funeral. This is how they do it. They tie a string tightly around the top half of their fingers for 30 minutes to stop the blood from flowing. And it's usually a loved one, like a sibling or a parent, that performs the action. Now, I don't know exactly how they do it, but once it's done, they cauterize it to prevent the bleeding, to make the bleeding to stop, and also to make the calloused fingertips you're seeing in the top. Now, I wanted to bring this fact to you because this is what diversity sounds to us sometimes. It shocks us, right? But if we open ourselves and respect, it makes it a little easier. Now let's change the perspective and think about any of us here in this room going to Indonesia, to the Dani tribe, and telling them, think about it, they're isolated, that women in the West, for various different reasons, implant breasts. Or, even better, that right now, hundreds of scientists around the globe are studying different ways of reimplanting lost body parts, such as fingers. How do you think they would feel? They would probably think it's crazy, right? So I'm saying this because it's okay for us to feel this discomfort we feel when we become acquainted with their practices. Now, I want to bring a different perspective to this diversity thinking we're having here. And unfortunately, it's a more painful one, even more painful than chopping off the top half of your finger. Researchers have said and have proved that suicidal attempts and suicidal ideation among lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, asexual youth is comparatively higher among them than heterosexuals. LGBT youth and young adults kill themselves more than heterosexuals. Now, I don't mean to go over the discussion on suicide because it's a very painful topic and there are many contributing factors to this sad reality. I just wanted to touch one of the diversity aspects I mentioned in the beginning, which is sexual orientation. Now, I was watching the other day the story of a mother whose 13-year-old committed suicide. And during her testimonial, she never actually said that this was the main reason why her son did that, but it was clear to her and to her family that he was being pointed out and bullied at school for looking and acting very gay. Now, let me make one thing very clear. People whose sexual orientation is of same-sex partners, often known as lesbians or gays, they differ greatly in the way they look and in the way they act. So such accusation is vague and senseless, not just if there's any fundament to bullying whatsoever. So lack of openness and lack of respect is what causes these precious lives to be lost. So here I am, to speak about my passion for the diversity of human beings. It wasn't too long ago that I noticed that this was something I had to do, that I had to bring to the table, to our daily lives, to our workplace. So I've been advocating for the diversity of us all. It's been 3 years. And trust me, I've been challenged. My own biases have been questioned, and I find it's needed to continuously reassess them and accept them and learn. And I'll tell you a little bit how I came to understand my constant need to rebuild the way I interact with others. This is a map of our state of Paraná, and right at the top in the northeast is where I am from. And the picture is of an aerial view of my town, and that's the entire town, okay? So I was born in Diamante do Norte, Paraná, and as long as well, for many moments in its history, it had 30,000 people. But don't be fooled. As long as I can remember, it only had 5,000. So it's not a lie if I say I knew most of those 5,000 people, okay? And so in my hometown, I was always the girl, daughter of the school teacher, daughter of the owner of the local butchery. There's nothing fancy about that, but I always felt valued as a part of a community. That's why it makes me uncomfortable today, and now I realize when I feel people being excluded. So in my hometown, I basically knew everyone. I had friends from my age, older than me, younger than me, friends of my brothers, friends of my cousins. And I always felt part of this big group. Now, when I was 2 years old, the only grandmother I met got involved in a car accident. It wasn't a very bad accident, but since she was 75 years old at the time, she never walked again. So having had someone with a physical disadvantage in my family taught me to open myself and respect others going through the same. Now, another aspect of how I behave as an adult also lies within my childhood. The other day I was at my parents' house and my mom was going through some old things she kept from my childhood, and she kept some clothes. And since my town was very small, remember, there weren't many places to buy clothes. So most of the stuff I had was tailor-made for me by one of my mom's friends. So I asked my mom, I said, why weren't my clothes pink or purple like all the other girls have? And she said, who said blue is for boys only? So right there and then, just a few months back, I realized that the things we are faced with or exposed when we're children reflect a lot in the adults we become. And I'll try to remember that as I become a parent one day. So now, I hope you leave this room today. Maybe some of what I said may have sounded familiar to you, but I want you to think about the uniqueness you have. And the uniqueness you have is very important to complete the life of the ones around you, and even more importantly, to contribute to the diverse and dynamic world we live in. Valuing your uniquenesses is not only a matter of respect or being polite, it empowers you to be freer about who you are. And once you're freer about who you are, the most amazing things happen. So the uniqueness in you matters to the greatness of the whole. And one of the things I advocate for is for a respectful and diverse workplace. So when you are free about who you are, everywhere in your life, in your personal lives or in your professional lives, and if you have a workplace that allows you to be that, there's nothing better than that. You'll be empowered to high-quality deliverables. And I strongly believe that a respectful and diverse workplace is a key to the success of organization as a whole, and also a key to the success we all individually pursue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mariana. Just to let you know, I've been to Diamante do Norte once. Yeah, drove through it. Okay.